Sega needed more than a simple solution to become the leader of the 32-bit generation. Alright, last time I asked about spoilers and mails. Whaddaya writes, I think the last mail I even saw was a Street Fighter game on the PS Triple. Street Fighter always dished out those sweet paper books. I mean, I don't think it's that deep if it puts in boss tips or whatever, and in a time before internet ruled our lives, you might need those tips, even at the cost of a spoiler. Well, I have to disagree. I think if you need to refer to outside sources, it means the devs failed you. They should leave context clues within the game that give you a sense of satisfaction, when you overcome a puzzle on your own. One of the worst offenders I can think of right now is the Immortal on Sega Genesis. That game, the devs require you to read that manual, and because some of the puzzles in the game, you don't even know they're puzzles. And other things require you to just throw everything at the wall to click. You're supposed to be like this all-knowing wizard, and you're like tapping on things, like tapping on the wall. It doesn't look right, okay? So Dead Thumb Gamer writes, mails of old were hit or miss. I never read through any as if they were a book, more like a reference mail. Normally I just plug and play, only referencing the mail to see details for controls, or if the game presented a challenge, something I couldn't figure out on myself, I'd look for details, clues, hints, etc. Color mails probably receive the most attention, as some would have vibrant illustrations, pics, screens, caps, etc. I'd say Genesis mails and inserts were my favorite. EA mails, well, yeah, man. Capcom and Konami had a pic. He had those thick dictionary book size mails. I appreciate when games I buy for the collection have mails, however it's not mandatory, which is how I've always seen games until I started watching YouTube gamers or collectors. Due to influences at a time, I've passed on games because they had no mail. Hopefully none of those were like, I don't know, a really cheap copy of Motion. Mails are nice to have for many reasons, however the game is what we play and remember. Well, yeah, that's the truth. I once remarked that of all of the videos I've seen, I've never seen a mail-only or box or case and mail, no game collection video. So they're cool, but you could definitely make a video on box art and mail art. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. What are some of your favorite mails besides Kirby? Well, that's not my favorite mail, man. I just used that as an example. Sega needed more than a simple solution to become the leader of the 32-bit generation. I mean, they had it in the bag. Sega Genesis, it had support at home. It had support from developers. Confidence. It built that confidence over years, okay? So it's easy to see why Sega thought, oh, well, we'll just make this add-on and it'll extend the lifespan of our successful Golden Boy. But the problem is, you're asking developers, in the same year you're starting the 32X development, the Saturn's getting released, you're asking developers to learn this new piece of hardware, you're asking developers to learn this new piece of hardware, you're asking customers to buy this piece of hardware, to buy this piece of hardware. There's a lot of confusion going on there, okay? They probably would have been better serviced by shoving an entire Genesis inside of a Saturn, at least the Model 1s. I mean, it's pretty roomy in there, you could fit it. But really, you had these customers with Genesis libraries, you had developers who were familiar with the tools, and if they knew that there was a current gen system that was supporting those games that they knew how to make, they would slowly release less and less Genesis games. But in the meantime, they would start picking up this new hardware, learning its ins and outs. Maybe they would have even figured out how to enhance Genesis cartridge games with the Saturn. I mean, they did it with the Sega CD and 32X, right? There were ways that developers made use of all pieces of hardware in that tower of power. But yeah, it's a shame. And obviously, Sega did know that customers wanted some 3D action in the home space, okay? By the time the Saturn was released, they knew people wanted that. Problem is, there wasn't a lot of examples to go by on how to make a 3D home console. So they made some mistakes, and those mistakes cost them developers. It was just easier to make 3D games on the competition, okay? And, well, they could have spent all those resources developing these 3D games on the Saturn or porting games from other platforms to the Saturn. Why? Why do that? Okay? And so you lose developers, and if you lose developers, you lose games. And if you lose games, I don't know why I would want to buy a Saturn if it doesn't have the games I want. And in the midst of all those ports that would probably be available on both platforms, there are those gems, and you know, so you have to find reason to stick with a certain platform. But if it's not even getting those ports, if it's not getting proper ports, then you have no real incentive to spending $100 extra on a Saturn versus a $299 priced competition. Yeah, it didn't work in their favor. That was just their bad luck, bad decision making in terms of how to make 3D architecture on this thing. Didn't work out for them. Okay, we all know the history, but yeah, if you think about it, in the end, also they were supporting a lot of pieces of hardware here. We had a Genesis, we had a 32X, we had a Saturn, we had a Game Gear, we had a Master System still going around in some parts of the world. And of course, all these other pieces of hardware being supported in different parts of the world. And obviously, they were supporting arcade innovation. Hardware, platform, software, you know? The competition didn't have that. These other platform... There was no Nintendo arcade at the time. There was no Sony PlayStation. Well, there was based Sony PlayStation similar hardware, but it wasn't like it was theirs. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there were a lot of problems with Sega at the time, and not just one simple answer. What do you think?